moderators? Okay. So hopefully the mic is fixed. If not, say something to the moderators, and we will endeavor to make things better. All right, so it's been a few minutes. Let's get started. A lot of good questions today. So I'm going to go from the top. We'll go from general, then do the COVID and the AI. There's a lot of general questions today. So let's just get started. Okay, so I'm going to loop all these into one thing. So there's a lot of questions in here about strategies and what we're doing so far. So let me just grab all of them that seem to be related and get moving. The first one I want to address is a reverse split or an NCIB. That's a normal course issuer bid. For those of you who are just catching up on this, you can look it up on Google. It's basically us buying back shares and keeping them. As said in the past, this has been discussed multiple times, going all the way back to the first AGM I was at, and we have received shareholder approval for reverse splits and such. That being said, we haven't landed on anything on this. We have said in the past, we would consider it for, a number of reasons. In the past, it was because we needed financing. That's no longer the case. But if, becomes under consideration and everything, it will be announced. Okay. So there'll be a press release about it, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it is always being talked about. It is something that we have considered. Should this become material, and it is something that we're in discussions about right now, then everybody will know as soon as we'll put it out there for a press release. So everybody will find out at the same time. Now I want to move on to the next one. There's hopefully that covers all the questions that came in through the email and stuff about reverse splits or, issuer bids and things like that. So yes, next I want to address acquisitions and things like that. So we have put out, what our strategies are looking like right now, with roll-ups and stuff. There's a ton. I'm going to just go into this blankly. There's no formula for an acquisition. Okay. Now, you can't go into a negotiation with somebody and just tell them, this is what we're trying. We're going to only deal in quarters or dollars. Everything has to be on the table. So if they want shares in the company, we have to discuss that. If they want cash, we have to discuss that. So if we're going after an acquisition, every one of them is individual. So I'm not going to sit here and commit to saying, hey, we're not going to ever issue them any shares. Well, that may or may not be the case at the time. It's going to depend on the acquisition and, should we do it? Do we think as a management team that this is going to make us money and increase value? If that's the case, then it's worth it. If it's not, it's not. But as details of, acquisition talks and stuff become material, again, we'll push them out in press releases. So we're not going to sit here and say that these particular negotiating tools are off the table. So we can't do that. That would be bad business. That being said, we will always negotiate in best faith what we, management thinks is in the best interest of the company. So we will avoid things that we think will, dilute value or, things of this nature. That's exactly what we're trying to avoid. So we will, when we go into acquisition deals, we're looking to get the best deal possible. And that's what we're looking for, monetary side. Next question is what are we, another one is, in addition to how we conduct the acquisitions, what are we looking for in companies? Primarily, we are looking for companies that are properties that can shore up holes in our stack. Okay. So compatibility with Nexology's technology is good. Ideally, we'd like to have companies that produce a lot of, well, I'm not going to say revenue at that stage, but it's not the word I'm looking for. We obviously want revenue. Don't get me wrong. It's synergy. So if we can take their stuff and say 2 + 2 = 5, combining it with Nexology's and really get a jump on something, that's really what we're looking for. Okay, so stuff that centers around NLP. Let me forgot to cut that off. Sorry about that. I normally cut that off before this. So natural language processing, unstructured text. We've looked at structured text identification in the past as it's, tangential to what we do. So anything that can be complementary there, that's high on the list as far as the technical requirements are concerned. On the other side, it's what can we do to add shareholder value as usual. But if we feel that, say, a particular piece of tech can do both of those things, that's exactly who we're going after. But again, our expertise is in NLP and it's in, machine learning, et cetera. These are the areas we're going to look at the most, because we feel we can be the most successful in there. Okay. So, and then a lot of questions around Christina. Just to be clear, a lot of the stuff that came in is good. One thing I won't do, so don't send me personal questions. Okay. So I know I've been through a few times on here. Don't go after people in a hateful, negative way. Again, that still applies, but don't ask me personal questions about employees. Okay. Cause I'm not going to answer them. Now, that being said, yes, so people have asked if she's been involved in some of the IRPR stuff and news releases since beginning of the month. Yes, she has. She's just getting her feet wet, but we're really happy with what she's done in the few weeks that she's been here. So you'll be hearing more and more from her as she gets, as she gets the lay of the land and becomes, comfortable working in that. Are we expecting news releases in the coming weeks? Yes. There will be news releases, guaranteed. We've got a couple that are in the works now. Timing, again, a few of these have to do with the government, so we're just kind of hurry up and wait. But as soon as they clear something, you guys will get it as soon as possible. Okay. Team structure. Okay, I got a lot of dedicated team structure questions in here, and so they're wondering about who's positioned where. Again, I'm not going to answer personal questions, okay? So if you're asking me where does a certain person work or live, no, I'm not answering it. So now what I will do is give a general overview of the company and how we're positioned globally, which, that's fine. So let's just start at home. We're headquartered in Toronto. For those of you who do not know, our address is, we're right around Yonge and Eglinton. If anybody is familiar with, I'm sure all you guys are familiar with the area. You can go find our, it's 2300 Yonge Street. You can go see it on the website. So datametrex.com, that's Toronto. In the Toronto office is mainly management and accounting. Okay. So additionally, some of our personnel work out of that office occasionally, like when we're doing COVID testing and things like that. So if there's something that needs to be done in the office, they'll go in there and do that. So COVID operations, management. There's a few development staff in Toronto around. So let's go to Montreal. Montreal, this is where the vast majority of our development is done in Canada. So almost all of our dev staff is in and around that area, and that's because Nexology is headquartered there. Okay, now we have no problems with people working remote, and a lot of, well, right now everybody in Quebec's working remote, but it's just traditionally that's where it rolled out. Okay, Vancouver. Vancouver office is accounting. Okay, and that's where the head of accounting is. So that's where CFO lives. Um, and all the major accounting is done from there. And we have a humongous presence for COVID there because we do the vast majority of our COVID work in Vancouver because that's where the film industry has most of their properties. Again, we do have small teams in Toronto. We have teams in Toronto. There's a team in Montreal that does a bit of this. But the big team is in Vancouver because, like I said, that's where all the filming is being done for the most part. And lastly, well, not lastly, two more. Seoul, Korea. We have sales there for Korean sales. We also have development teams there that do work with the Korean market. So when we're working with Korean clients and things, we have development teams that speak the language, work directly with them, etc. And last but not least, we do have people in Germany. So we've got a few people in Germany that are working on that market right now. So, but that's about as low a level as I'm willing to go. Telling people, where we are. Now, the next question, a few other questions that came in around this is, like how do you size teams? How do we do things like that? Real quick before I get on to sizing teams, people say, do we have people in the U.S.? Yes, we do have people in the U.S., but it's mostly sales and marketing. Okay. We don't do development and stuff in the U.S. right now. We only do development area in Canada and Korea at the moment. So yes, sales and marketing is there. There's not a one size fits all for a fully functioning team. It depends on the problem. Like you can have a sales guy that's a team of one. In fact, we do have the sales guys that were teams of one do really well. And then we get on a contract like some of the ones that have been announced recently. The engineering teams are going to range from, a few people up to, multiple teams. It's just going to depend on the problem. So I'm going to need more information if you're after how does a tech team operate or how does a sales team operate or something like that. That's, we can go into that, but just ask, I can't elaborate more on what a fully functional team is without knowing what the purpose of the team is. Now, how long does it take to stand up a team in a new vertical? Or a new region and vertical. Those are two different questions. Region is going to depend on the languages and stuff. For instance, in Germany, it took several months to get everything right. When we put the websites and stuff up in Korea, it took about that same amount of time, 2 to 3 months to get that up and running. That's just on the marketing side.
Da wollte ich ja damals diese Nachtschränke für uns haben in schwarz, aber die gab es ja genau dann nicht, als wir unsere gekauft haben. Und als wir dann das neue
And okay, so there was some noise there, so we can get it out. And then the next one was how does it depends on how do we stand up a team for a new vertical? Again, I'm going to answer that generally because it's going to depend on the problem set. If we're going to do a small vertical for R&D purposes, let's say we're just looking into something to see if it'll work, that's usually only a person or two, right? Like it won't be a lot of people. They'll do a few initial experiments. You don't want to put a lot of cost into it. You want to see if there's any, what can we do with a few thousand, not a lot of money. Like, does it work? Okay. Can we get a prototype to work? That's what it'll look like. If we go into a vertical full-fledged, then it's going to be like expanding. It's just like building any other, small business like that. You're only going to start with a couple of people until you map it out. And then we're going to expand, anywhere from 2 to 10 people generally for something like that, depending on what we're doing. 10 would be a lot, at the beginning. But, say for instance, let's look at Medicall. You need your dev staff, so there's several people on development team doing that. And Medicall needs a little more than most because there's, let's see, like 6 apps involved. With But again, we need marketing teams. We need people that are doing, public relations with them. We need administrative staff in the background. We also need medical staff on team, So there's quite a lot of people involved in something like that. Now, whereas when you're doing a contract with some of the contracts we do with, say, the different branches of intelligence or the military or something like that, there's no marketing and stuff at all. They don't even exist in a contract like that. Like it's going to be tons and tons of engineering people, some project management, some human interface people, UI, UX designers, and that's it. There's, that other 2/3 of the business, which is, the other staff, doesn't exist. They don't count. So depending on the vertical and what we're doing is going to depend on the layout. B2C stuff requires seems like a lot more overhead. The B2B stuff does not. I hope that gives you guys an answer as to what we're doing. There. Okay. Is inflation going to impact DM's business? I hope not. I don't control inflation, so unfortunately, that's going to be something I can't really answer. Right now, it doesn't appear to, and we have no indications that it's going to. So how about that? Consider investing some. Okay, so then there's a few questions that came in on the wire about investment strategies. When we are we considering cryptocurrency? Well, we have considered it in the past. We have not, to this date, invested in cryptocurrency, and given the last week or so, I'm kind of glad we didn't. We'd have lost our shirt with everybody else. But I mean, it is on the table. We are investigating in it, so we'd be, crazy not to look into that. So yeah, of course we're looking into that. 'Cause it's one of the verticals we're looking into right now. If the thing works, we will do it. As of right now, we haven't done it, but we just started on this project. So keep your ear to the ground as stuff becomes more and more material. It will go out. So we have considered it. We haven't done it just yet. It's still under consideration. Have offers, any of the discussions around buyouts or acquisitions for DM advanced? Not since about last December, or actually, yeah, December was the last time anybody was talking about that. That being said, with the contracts we just landed, those are going to get quite more complex if those talks continue. But it was Christmas time when we were talking, or before Christmas, we were talking about that. Or nobody closed any doors or anything, but we just added a lot more value to the company over the past month. Now, timelines on, assets that are laying around and stuff we're still cleaning up. Again, as it becomes material, we'll let it out and we'll tell everybody. I can't announce those on Discord because they are material, right? I've been told quite specifically those are material. So I can't talk to those dates here. Okay, so let's keep going. All right, so we'll move on to COVID. Medicall, the app is running on all platforms. So the update, it's being tested right now. We will have updates on Medicall in the next 5 to 10 days. We will be pushing out updates on that. People are asking about sponsorships and, working with other vendors and things of this nature. We are exploring all those. It's being explored. There's nothing to report yet. When there is something to report, we will report it. Next, this is all going to be Medicall. As of right now, Medicall's still on track. If that changes, we'll let you know. Can you elaborate on the role of ScreenPro in Medicall? ScreenPro is a service provider for us. So this isn't just, I just want to elaborate. It's not a role of ScreenPro and Medicall. It's a role of how ScreenPro interacts with Datametrex, okay? And any subsidiaries. ScreenPro provides, nursing services, transport services, testing services, concierge testing services, all this type of stuff that we weren't allowed to do when we got into the COVID business, as the TSX told us, these are your limitations. So that's where ScreenPro comes in. ScreenPro will be providing some of those same services for Medi-Call. So we fully anticipate, using ScreenPro for nursing capabilities, medical staff, things of this nature. So it's all there. So people want to know, can they get, all right. There's been a lot of questions if people can get on the tests, the beta tests of these. As of right now, the beta testing's not slated to go out to anybody that hasn't already been notified. If that changes, we will let you guys know. But as of right now, the people that have the beta test got it. So how is COVID testing going so far this year? Okay, so we just put a press release out about this. COVID testing is still going. In fact, we're actually testing a little more often. They're using antigen tests this go around for a lot of this. As you guys or everybody that's living in Canada knows, these things have been distributed fairly widely to certain effect. So yeah, that's going. It hasn't stopped. The production industry is in as big a panic as everybody else about the Omicron variant, and so they are testing away. All right, so let's go to the AI. This is going to be a long one. You guys hang tight, or longer. Can DM contribute to Metaverse? I'm sure we could. I'm sure in some fashion we could. Are we trying to contribute to Metaverse right now? Not actively. But we'll never shut that door. We'll definitely, if there's a door to be open there, we will look into it. Okay, so then now with moving on to the AI, there's a ton of questions around government contract updates. Okay. The PRs are out. We're selected. We moved on. We're continuing. Contract keeps going. Now, I've explained this contract in great detail here and in several interviews, so I'm not going to go in and explain how the time gating on the contracts works again. That being said, as soon as this slice is finalized and as far as the verbiage and stuff is concerned and the government's cleared it, et cetera, we're all good. It's been cleared by, the government, the TSX, governing bodies. You guys will have that news. Okay. We got the initial, piece cleared. The details, we're just waiting on clearance for those, and then we'll put out a PR that lets you guys know the details of this, what we're doing in this particular tranche or section of the contract. But we got it. We're keeping going. It's one of our primary focuses right now. And as that clears, we'll let you guys know. Just to give you guys an idea on how fast those timelines work. There has been one submission that was cleared in 24 hours. That was the fastest it ever came. The slowest it ever was a couple months. And then there is the average is somewhere about a month-ish. But I have no visibility into how that works. Like they tell us what we can and cannot say. So as soon as we have that, I know we've heard that before, but they're not going to change their process. As soon as they have that, that's on. Okay. RFPs. So we got some questions around RFPs and how they work. Okay. RFP stands for request for proposal. Okay. The way that this works with the Canadian government, this is not just Canada though, but this is just generally how RFPs work worldwide. We have services that monitor our, tenders in Canada, the US, all kinds of stuff, Europe, everywhere that NATO is doing business. In addition, we monitor, for, anything for the COVID business, et cetera. So an RFP, when it's issued, the government will go out and say, we want X services, or we want, 1 million test kits or something like that. These are the criteria. So let me give you a concrete example. We want to monitor, the traffic conditions on the Carry in Montreal between, the 15 on ramp or in the north and then the off ramp in the south. So there's a few 7-8 kilometers of traffic, and then they'll say we need 4 cameras that look at speed. We need 6 cameras that look at how close vehicles are in proximity to each other. We need 4 cameras that monitor how many people change lanes, etc. So there'll be a whole list of requirements like that. And what you have to do is write up in a proposal how you aim to satisfy all those requirements, or as many as you can. And if there's some you can't satisfy, you have to list why, and then what you can do to mitigate that, or would you be able to satisfy those requirements in the future? And then there's a cost. So you submit a bid, and then there's a review process, which we're not privy to, that takes those bids and then notifies who wins. That's the 1,000-kilometer view of what the RFP process is. Okay. So I hope that's clear. So everybody can understand that now. When we're saying we're bidding on RFPs, this is what it means. We're never guaranteed to win. But we put our best foot forward and we try to take them. Now, the bid also includes profit margin, so they don't exclude that from the bid. Sometimes it's capped though. Some of the bids will say your profit margin cannot exceed 8% or 20%, and they're all different. So every RFP has its own nuances. All right. So I hope that covers it, how that works. Sorry, I just want to get some water. Okay, EV questions. There's not a lot to say with the EV just yet. We will be putting out some PRs in the next couple months around this. So I can't announce anything just yet, but I'm going to touch on something with the EV in just a minute with regards to contracts. So stay tuned for that. All right. So drone acquisition, same thing. As soon as we get that, you guys will have it. Competitors. Okay. So in competition. So these are good questions right here. What AI competitor would you compare DM to today? Okay, well, we do a couple things. We are a smaller version of Palantir, so we cover a lot of the ground they do. I would compare us to 2 main ones. And then we cover a lot of the same ground Meltwater covers, but Meltwater does a lot of their contracting and stuff in the background. So we kind of sit in the middle of those 2 as far as, what our capabilities are and what we do. In addition to that, out of those the 3 companies there, we're the only one that concentrates on that discovery function. Now, so so where would we like to be in a year or 2? Well, we'd obviously like to be one of the primary AI providers in Canada and the US for these positions. That's where we want to be. Now, with regards to, what we do with NLP, the unstructured text, et cetera, et cetera. So we're just looking to build that up, keep that going. And, we want people to be asking us, what can you do to beat Nexology and beat Datametrex? That's where we're going with that. Okay, DM's main advantage over the competitors. That's what I was saying earlier, that we are a discovery engine. We're not just a monitoring engine, so we can find things that you don't even know existed yet and point them out to you before they become a problem. That's our primary advantage over the competitors. The second thing that we maintain or would like to maintain is time to insight, which means that we can take data and make it actionable faster than other people. So those are our 2 main advantages, and we're going to try to keep those. So I got another question in just real quick. I want to touch this before I keep going about, how many shares we'd be willing to give up and things. Guys, this is, when we're talking acquisitions, I can't put any rules around this. I don't know. Okay. So it depends on the person or persons sitting across the table from us when we're doing the acquisition. And so when we're doing an acquisition, we will get the best deal we can for Datametrex and its shareholders. That's what we can do. I'm not going to take anything off the table. I'm not going to say, well, we're only willing to, spend $1 million or give you 500,000 shares or something like that. We can't do that. It's going to depend on the acquisition and, how it goes down. $1 million acquisition is vastly different than a $10 million acquisition, and how those things are going to go, roll out. I'm not sure. Do I, and so last one, Agoracom talked about coin analyzer. What is that in DM's connection? That's the working name for the stuff they're doing with the financial tech. It's just a working name. So that's just something that kicked around. It's a working name, coin analyzer. We hear about a lot of shortage of rapid tests. Is there the filling holes with rapid tests? Yes and no. We are filling a lot of holes with rapid tests for private producers for the government, not so much as they want a Canadian supply chain, and our tests come from Korea. On that front. That being said, for the stuff we're working with, the mining companies, production companies, all that, there's no issues. It all goes through, no problem with the antigen test. How is DM paid for COVID testing? Again, depends on the contract. Some of it's 60 days net, some of it's 90 days net, some of it's 30 days net, some of it's 2 weeks. I mean, it depends on the other side. Like when we contract out, sometimes the accounting departments pay bills every 60 days. Sometimes they pay them every 30 days. It depends on the person sitting on the other side. We're not going to turn somebody's money down because they want to pay 60 net instead of 30 net. We don't care that much. We're going to take the contract, take the money. Can you let us know how long we've been waiting for government approval of a news release related to the contract? So the last one got submitted a week ago. So that's the very last one got submitted a week ago. It won't be it. Okay, I can't say that, but that's where it is. Do you think Palantir knows about DM? I know for a fact they do. I've actually had conversations around this. So yes, they've heard of us. Will we hear about the AGM? Yes. When we know when there is an AGM or a proposal for it, it'll go out in a press release and everybody will get their information packets that we have to have that. Is there any hope we'll hear about an AGM soon? I don't want to answer that this week. I can probably answer that in about 2 weeks. We are going through with some board meetings this week. I'd like to get through those first before I start committing to anything like that. Is there a general baseline of cash you want to keep on hand? To tell you the truth, as little as possible as far as cash on hand. We want to have cash for operating expenses, etc. But if there's extra money laying around, it needs to be working for the company. So it needs to be invested, etc. So we do that. We want to keep we can't spend all the money we have in one day. So why not let it, work for the company while it's sitting there? So absolutely, we invest that. Is image processing important? It is. Image processing is something that we're actually looking at right now and has come up a couple of times with the government contract we were talking about earlier. Okay, and what are we most excited about for the very near future? I'm most excited about what we just did with that government contract. That was a huge, just pat on the back for us and for everybody that's worked on that. And, it's just a huge validation of all the work the guys have done to really turn that around over the past couple of years. So that's what I'm most excited about right now. And I think we've had a really good January. So between the contracts in Korea and, landing the ones we are here, and then the contracts we announced, before Christmas, then that's what I'm really excited about right here. And I really am excited to see what we can do through that government contract and pushing it back in to our main core stack. So that's what we're looking at. And somebody asked about a Medi-Call buyout. I'm unsure what that refers to. And then a question around numbers around antigen and PCR sales and stuff. Numbers are material, so when we have numbers, those do get announced. So keep an eye out for it. So one other thing, I'm going to ask the mods to put this at the top, as we've answered this quite a bit. So we've had a lot of questions around reverse splits and buybacks in different forms. Can we just put, a quick note in a pinned message that we're not going to answer those? And I'll remind everybody for over the next month or so that we're just, hey, it's been discussed, you'll know. But that's it, because it takes up a lot of time and I don't want to go through it again. Okay. And I think that's it. So I believe we've got everybody. Thanks everybody for being here. And I ran about 10 minutes over, but I'm hoping to, make sure that we cover everything for everyone. We appreciate you being on board, and we're looking forward to another good year. So we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.